Welcome back, everybody. Super excited to share another episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast. As always, my name is Adam, and I'm here with my co-host, Ben. Ben, hope you're having a great day today. What's going on, bud?
Hey, I'm having an awesome day, like always. Very thankful to be here. I think we have some amazing, exciting content. So, really excited to go over that with you and share that with our audience.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, we've got a lot of new stuff that we're going to be implementing into the podcast over the upcoming few weeks. Really excited for you guys to hopefully get a lot of value out of this. And we're going to be doing one of these new kind of twists to the podcast today, which is we're going to be doing a Q&A sessions. Over the last 22 episodes, this is our 23rd episode we're recording today. Over the last 22 episodes, we've, slowly built up our audience, and we've been getting a lot of questions, whether it be from our viewers on YouTube or also just our Spotify and Apple Music podcast listeners that are shooting us direct messages and just asking us questions, people that are, maybe struggling in different areas of their life when it comes to self-improvement, parenting, business, all that kind of stuff. So what we're really excited and just really trying to be intentional about is, asking our audience what kind of questions they might have and doing our best to answer those. So we've
hmm
picked 3 questions today that we're going to be dialing in and just talking through in a little bit more depth and sharing our own personal perspectives on. And let's just gonna get right into it. So Ben, I'll go ahead and let you kind of share with the audience the first question that we had submitted.
Yeah, so this was the first question from one of our listeners, and they were asking about burnout. So, here's the question: how do you avoid burning out? You both seem like you've got a lot of stuff going on, being entrepreneurs, business owners, and Ben as a single parent. Any tips?
Yeah, so this is one of these questions we could go in so many different directions, and I'd like to try and go a little bit deeper than surface level because obviously, there's some basic things that we could kind of talk about that I'm imagining most people are already aware of. But the one that I wanted to first share with the audience is something that I think is so valuable if you really to kind of just ingrain it into your head, and that
Hmm.
is just understanding the value of saying no. A lot of people, especially
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and people that are really trying to please everybody. I know myself personally, I'm a people pleaser. I really get a lot of enjoyment or just satisfaction out of pleasing people, making myself feel like I'm serving them and doing a good service to these different people in different scenarios. So I'm a yes guy. If somebody asks me to do something, a lot of times I'll just say yes without actually thinking about what that's going to entail. So the one that I
hmm
wanted to bring up is just the value of not saying yes but saying no, and really respecting that for
Yeah.
not only yourself but also just for your bigger vision and your goal of where you're trying to get to. So, when it comes to burning out, if you have too many balls in the air, if you're juggling a lot of different projects, instead of getting any one single project done, you're going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And by saying yes to so many different things, that only further complicates this type of scenario. Understanding just that it's okay to say no and just really being intentional about what your lane of focus is, and anything that doesn't match and align with that lane of focus, say no to it.
Yeah.
Ben, I think you and I've talked about this a few times. I think you have a couple good kind of pointers on this one too, because I know you feel strongly about this too.
Yeah, I think that's so important. The point that you just made, it reminds me of that Jim Carrey movie. I don't know if you ever saw it, but I think it came out around like 2008, 2009 range, called Yes Man. You know what? And that's a movie where he has to say yes to everything because he doesn't get out enough. And so that's kind of the focus of the movie. And you see this path that he goes down. But I absolutely agree with you on your feedback and analysis. Learning to say no is so important. When you say yes to everything or too many things or things that you're not really passionate, excited, or engaged in, you can't be your best, you can't give your best. And so even though you want to help, you're not, if it's not coming from a place of abundance and supply, you're not going to be able to have that impact that you're hoping to have. So if you're not if you're not there, then the best thing is to just say no and really be guarded of your personal time. And that
Mhm.
leads me to, one of my things that's brought me a lot of clarity and peace with this is just having a really strong routine. And I always put the label on myself when I was younger that, I was not a morning person. And over the last 5 or 6 years, I've developed a really strong morning routine, and that has really parlayed into the rest of my day. It's something when I'm on my routine, as far as like when I'm getting up at the right time and doing the right things, it brings me so much fulfillment. It really keeps me on track. And when I get off my routine, I just feel, just not as engaged or in focus. I feel like I'm a little, off track, or not having the impact that I would like to have. So having a really strong routine for me in the morning is really, really important. I also plan my days the night before. Sometimes I will actually put pen to paper and write down what I need to get done. But even if I don't do that, I will always do that first thing in the morning. Once I kind of start my day, I'm actually putting pen to paper and write down all the things that I need to get down. And that's important for me because that does help build momentum. And then at the end of the day, I can just see how much I accomplished. And learning to be organized, learning to be disciplined, having a strong routine is something that has really, really benefited me. And I encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, I like to, use the analogy of a glass of water and, let's just say it's filled halfway full at the moment, and you have all these just non-negotiable actions for you as a single dad. You've got one-on-one time with your kids, you've got to help make dinner, you got to spend time with them, you've got to help with homework, you've got to do obviously all of your career obligations that clients are relying on you to do. There's these
Hmm.
things that are non-negotiables that have to be done, and that's those each of those tasks, activities, that's filling up that glass a little bit more full.
Hmm.
When you start saying yes to things that maybe aren't directly in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish, your personal, very narrow lane of focus, your goal, what happens is you start filling up that glass with stuff that isn't matching with your goal, with your alignment. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden that glass is full. And when it comes time to start doing other tasks that are incredibly important, you don't have room for anything else. And you are overflowing the glass, and you're just not either performing at the highest level with those tasks, and stuff is slipping through the cracks, or it's just not getting
Hmm.
done. So, everybody's human. Everybody only has so much bandwidth and so much energy in a day, regardless of if you're Elon Musk or whoever you are.
Yeah.
You still are very limited on your amount of energy, and there's 24 hours a day. That's all you got. So I think just the last thing I wanted to just say about this saying no is just being very kind of clear on that analogy where, you
Hmm.
have a limited amount of time, you have a limited amount of energy. Make sure that you're filling your glass with stuff that, again, is aligning with what your goals are. And, if people are asking you to do things, let's just say you got a good friend that's asking you to go play golf on a Thursday afternoon, and yeah, you could go play golf with him, but you have these things that really need to get done. By saying no, you're just basically putting yourself in a position to build up that mental muscle where, it's okay to say no. And after you've done this
Yeah.
a few times, it's not a big deal. And I would also like to point out that any friend that is maybe getting upset or frustrated about you saying no to that, they're not really that close of a friend if they can't understand why you're saying no, if it is
Yeah.
for the reason of trying to better yourself and do something bigger than what we're talking about. So
And you're so much better off saying no than saying yes and then canceling last minute, or changing plans, or wanting to reschedule, being a flake. And so just saying no from the start, one thing that I've learned to say is, probably not, or I doubt it, but if that changes, I will let you know.
yep.
Setting that expectation. I hear you. I'm probably not going to be available, but if my schedule changes, or if that does change, I will let you know.
Hmm. Love that. I think that was yeah, that was good feedback. So I'll ask the second question, and Ben, I'll let you be the first to answer this one. So the second question that we received was, so hey guys, I'm younger than you are. I'm actually 20, and I'm just trying to figure out my direction in life. How did you figure this out when you were younger? And do you have any tips for getting clarity on your purpose in life?
Yeah, that's such a great question too, and it's so powerful. And the answer for me is that I didn't. When I was in my 20s, I did have a vision in certain areas of my life, but not in a lot of areas of my life. Looking back now, I can see that I didn't really have my values strongly and clearly defined. And so that is one of my messages to younger folks is that I really do believe it's very, very important to understand and define what your values are, understanding what brings you fulfillment. When we are younger, a lot of times we just want to fit in. We want to fit in with our friends. We want to be liked. We care about the opinions of others. And I was just joking with some of my friends, and I've shared this with you before, but now being 41 years old, I'm at a place now where I do not care about the opinions of others. I just don't care. And it feels so empowering to say that and live life from that perspective because that is not always how I felt. And when you do care, and it kind of goes back to what you were just saying, where a lot of times you're going to be saying yes to things that maybe aren't in line with who you are or what your values are. And when I look back at my 20s, there are certain areas of my life where I was very disciplined, where I did have a vision, but there were other areas where I was just kind of going along with the crowd, following the 97%. When you're not hanging out with the right people, doing the right things, and you don't really have strong people in your life that you respect, you value, that are on task and on mission, it's really, really easy to go down the wrong path. One thing that I pray with my kids every single night is that they stay on the path that God has planned for them, that they say no to the people, places, and things that God does not have planned for them, and they say yes to the things that He does. And really, I think we can do this by understanding who we are, what our values are, and then what is our vision and how do we want to live life? What is the blueprint that we're going to put together? I believe that we are all co authors of our own life. I believe that God has a plan for us. And then I believe that, it's our calling to walk out that plan and be a co author of the life that we lead. But we have to live it with intention. And when I was in my 20s, I was not always living every area of my life with intention. I was kind of just floating around at times, going with the crowd, not, letting other people make decisions for me. And when you do that, you can just get off task and off track. And after a couple of years, you can look back and you can ask yourself, where am I at? Who am I becoming? And how did I get here? One of my favorite quotes is from The Lion King. When Simba runs from the pride, and Mufasa comes to him in the clouds, and he says, "Remember who you are." Because he's hanging out with a warthog, and what was the other animal, like a squirrel or a prairie dog.
Meerkat, yeah.
And so he's hanging out with these other animals that don't represent who he is. And so his father comes to him in the clouds and says, remember who you are. And we have to all remind ourselves and ask ourselves, remember who we are, so we stay on track and we stay on mission, and we are living in according with our values and our vision.
And then kind of my angle on this one. So this is something that I have really struggled with, to be honest with you guys. I have just always had a hard time really figuring out, there's a really good book. If you guys haven't read a book by Simon Sinek, it's called Why, Finding Your Why, or maybe it's just Why. Anyways, it's just, finding the why being, why are you on this earth? Why are you getting up every morning? What's driving you? And I've had a really hard time with that. I've had a hard time just figuring out what that is. And I will say that for a lot of people, including myself, the only way to really figure that out is through trial and error and just being bold and confident enough just to take action and to just try new things. If you're
Mm.
in a position where you just really don't know what you're passionate about. Maybe you're like this guy who's 24 years old, probably just out of college, something that I was in a similar position after college. I got a degree in marketing, but I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I wanted to make a difference in this world, but, you know, trying to correlate like what kind of a job actually truly like makes a difference in this world. I
Yeah.
think that there's just something to be said about just trying something and giving it an honest, adequate amount of time to truly, give it a chance. And if it's not the right thing for you, great. That's a blessing. That just means that that's one thing that you now know isn't your why, isn't your passion or your direction in life. And you can hopefully have a little bit more clarity on where to focus on next. So definitely, if you guys haven't, look up Simon Sinek, Sinek. It's one of the, I think it's definitely a best-selling book. You can find it on Amazon. Pretty short read. Just kind of poses some good questions for you if you're somebody like myself that just wasn't sure. And I'll close out my 2 cents on this just with saying that, I'm 41, or I turned 41 tomorrow actually, but
That's right.
you have chapters in your life. And I really like looking at life from that perspective, as it always makes you realize that there's a fresh opportunity around the corner. And if what you're currently in just doesn't fit where you want to be in life, if it's not matching and aligning with your why, you always have the ability to completely reinvent yourself and start over and make an effort to find what that is and go in that direction. And, I look at chapters like kind of like your decades, like
Yeah.
I think of myself in my 20s. I was a little bit more liberal. I was a little bit more of not a hippie, but I'm a little more of a mountain type guy where I was just free spirited and living in the mountains. And then in my 30s, more of an entrepreneur. And now I'm thinking more about, passive income and all these other kind of long-term type goals that you and I both share. But just looking at it from a kind of a chapter in life perspective. And by doing so, I think you can at least realize that, it's never too late to open a new chapter in your life and go closer to that direction that you're meant and you're destined to go towards.
Yeah. And I tried to do that with my divorce. The person that I am now compared to 6 years ago is radically different. And we all have these little moments in our life where we can hear either our spirit, crying out. And a lot of times it comes in the form of adversity. You might have a health problem or a financial problem. If you're feeling though, like you want to make a change and change your life, you can. And you don't have to be where you're at. You can make choices and decisions. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean that's not going to be hard. It is going to be hard, but you have the ability to do that. And when you walk that out day by day and make small incremental changes consistently, you can look back in 5 or 6 years and be in a totally different place and be a completely different person who's totally transformed from the person that you were. So you can change. You can do this.
If you guys are really soaking in what we're talking about right now and you're that person, I'm going to give you guys a little homework for today after you finish this episode. I want you guys to go onto Spotify, go onto YouTube and look up one of my favorite artists of all time, Michael Jackson. And I want you guys to put on Man in the Mirror and just listen to the lyrics in that song because it speaks to what we're talking about right now. Just quote me on that. Do it. Leave us a comment below afterwards and comment and let us know what you think about that.
All right, last question here. Question number 3. I want to start my own business, but I'm scared to leave my steady paycheck. How did you make the leap and have the confidence to start your own business and work 100% on or sales?
All right, you want me to start on this one?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I'll use my first major real kind of project as an example. So when I started my Aspen Tan, I had a tanning salon business that I started from scratch with zero experience whatsoever. And, it was this scenario where there was a ton of financial investment to get this up and running and off the ground. We're talking about significantly into the 6 figures. And I didn't have that saved, was so on the fence of, do I do this? Do I not do this? And it just basically, it comes down to the point where you just have to have the confidence and just realize that you live
Yep.
life once. You need to, if it's something you're passionate enough about, just take that leap of faith. That's what life's all about, is, taking calculated risk and, trying, striving to do something that's unique and different and exciting. I start off with saying that, and I mean, by saying this, I mean that it's very important to have that level of just kind of confidence in yourself and willingness to take that leap.
Hmm.
However, I also learned from experience that it is so important to at least start, not necessarily start small, but be very conscious of the calculated risks that you're taking. One of
Yeah.
those being your financial states. Definitely have, worst case scenarios in the back of your mind, and understand that, if your high aspirations of what this business or whatever you're trying to do, if it doesn't pan out the way you thought, are you able to withstand some hardships? Can you weather the storm for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and not have it sink the ship? Because, there's
Hmm.
some quotes about, small businesses. It's something like 90% of small businesses don't make it past, I think it's 5 years.
Yeah.
And then of those, it's just, I don't want to say the wrong numbers here, but it is a crazy stick. And I think a lot of that is due to people not being more prepared on the front end of just being
Hmm.
in a place of thinking logically and not only emotionally.
Yeah. That's a great point. And to go to your point earlier, Alex Hermosi talks about that a lot in a lot of his videos. What is your 99-year-old self perspective telling you? So, imagine and look at yourself being someone who's 99 years old. When you're reflecting back on your life, are you going to ask yourself, am I glad that I didn't take the jump and take the risk, and I didn't challenge myself? I didn't take the job, or didn't, talk to the girl, or start the business. When you look at it in those terms, and you're 99 years old and you've lived your life, now you are going to wish that you had done all these things. So if you can understand that and live your life from that perspective, it's going to help with decision making. But to your point, what you said is so important. It doesn't mean that you're going to be reckless. You need to be very, very responsible. And I think a great way to start that is by finding a job where you have the ability to control your time and your money and your income. I was on a salary for years and years and years, and going from that salary to a position that was 100% commission, it was one of the toughest, most difficult things that I've ever done. And at the time, I was married, and my wife really just encouraged me to do this. She said that I had the skills and she believed in me, but it was still so difficult because, making that transition just mentally so challenging. You think about all the responsibilities and all the demands that you have at the time. My kids were very young. I had a mortgage payment. I had all these different financial responsibilities. And those are the things that can kind of hold you back, and they're the chains that will hold you down. But I decided to, I wrote down, like, what if things go really, really well? What would that look like? What would that look like from an income perspective? What would that look like from a career perspective? Would I be able to grow my assets? How many loans would I be able to project and forecast year by year? And from what I wrote down to what actually happened, there was no comparison. My best case, I exceeded my best case scenario multiple times. But at the time, going through the weeds and digging through the mud, there can be so much fear when you're trying to make that decision, and it's very, very difficult. If you try and find it, like with my job, I'm still a W-2 employee, so I still get health insurance. I have an employer match in my 401k. I have all of the employee benefits, but I still have the ability to control my income based off of my performance. And then the other thing is I have the ability to control my time. I don't have to ask for permission to take time off. I have the ability to work in the office or work remotely. I can go down to Florida and work if I want to. I can travel around the world and work. I have that ability, and that's really really cool. So I have the ability to control my calendar, but then also control my income based off of my performance. I see a lot of wage earners talking about how well they're performing, but their boss isn't giving them that raise, or they're not getting that increase in their salary. And you have to understand that is how the system works. If you work for a big fish, they are incentivized not to pay you more. You when you're working at a corporation, you were always going to get paid less than what you're worth, because if you were getting paid what you're worth, it wouldn't make sense. The numbers just they won't work, and that's why you have to find a position where you can get paid off of your performance. And then once you have some financial stability, kind of like you were mentioning, where if you've developed some other sources of income, rental properties, other passive sources of income. And if you've developed an asset of portfolio, I'm sorry, a portfolio of assets, maybe it's stocks, mutual funds, an investment property portfolio, that makes taking some of these other risks and jumping into entrepreneurship full force, it makes it so much less risky. And so if you can develop yourself and develop your skills to where you can increase your income, be smart with your money, grow your assets, create other sources of revenue, then take that step 100% into entrepreneurship. It's a much less risky way to do that.
And then the only other thing I would add to that is, social media has some very amazing, great things about it, but there's also obviously a lot of negatives. And one of the negatives, in my opinion, is that everybody is always this version of themselves that's always the perfect lifestyle. Everything is perfect in their world. And when you're, looking at other people that are doing what you want to strive to do in whatever career industry you're in, and
Hmm.
that's some of the motivation behind you wanting to take that leap and go all in on whatever it is you're passionate about. Just be very aware that, not everything that you're seeing on social media and online is that's not the full story. So I really, really, really implore you guys to make a big part of your goal, if you're in this phase, to network and to find mentorship on a local level. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that lives by you, but somebody that you can actually build a one-on-one relationship with, somebody that has been in the position that you're about to be in, and just get their feedback and their story. Because, you
Yeah.
know, very, very few people get wealthy and successful from completely doing something new. You don't have to, reinvent the wheel. The secret sauce to 90% of people that are wealthy as entrepreneurs is they're
Hmm.
just finding people that are succeeding at a high level at whatever industry that they're passionate about getting into. And they're just copying a lot of the traits that those people have. So by
Hmm.
finding a mentor that's been in that position, finding a few things out maybe that you're not even aware of, that is going to put you so far ahead and prepared, and at least in a place where you can be more prepared when those obstacles come up. It's not going to be coming from left field. Hopefully, you're going to have a little bit more of insight and ability to kind of overcome those and not have it as dramatically affect the business. And in a lot of cases, it could sink the ship. So
Yeah.
just
That's
find
one thing that I'm
mentorship.
constantly talking about. Surround yourself with people that are better than you, that earn more, that are more disciplined, that are going to really challenge you, that are going to hold you accountable. Those are the people that you want in your life, because it's going to make you uncomfortable and it's going to give you the opportunity to grow. When you surround yourself with a bunch of yes ma'am, yes sir, people that are always just saying yes, patting you on the back, that is not what you want. They are not doing you a service. You have to be around people that are going to really make you think critically. They're going to inspire you to behave a certain way, act a certain way, bring out the best in you. So that is so important.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say on this one is just understanding calculated risk, realizing that, and I'm again speaking from my personal experience, understanding that, you open up a new business and yeah, you want the super fan, electronic screen behind the point of sale at your retail shop, or you want some very high end CRM system to handle all of your customers and clients. You have all these bells and whistles in front of you when you're just getting started. Just having some calculated risk where you're understanding that yeah, that's a want to have, but that's not a must have right now. Being able to be a little bit more frugal with your money and just being calculated on every single step that you're taking towards your goal, and really thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead and making the decisions today that are going to be serving you the best to get to that place. If you're
Yeah.
trying to invest in some super fancy thing that really won't matter until you're 3 or 5 years into your business, don't be focusing on that now. Focus on stuff that's really going to move the needle and is going to be setting you up for success.
Yeah, my brother and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, but one of the things that is so important that so few people talk about, and you were just kind of touching on the surface there, is just having the ability to make really good decisions and having really strong judgment in every area of your life. And one great way to develop that skill is by what you just referenced, having a mentor, having someone to bounce ideas off of and talk through things. Because when you make the wrong decisions, if you overinvest in something, a business, for example, and I've made this mistake myself, no one has made more mistakes with the things that you're talking about than me. My wife and I, about 12 years ago, we started a shoe accessory, and we had 1,000 shoe straps made in China. And when they arrived, none of them fit because the dimensions were off. And literally spent like $50,000. And I was like, okay, yeah, that was not strong judgment, like, looking back. And so, have a mentor. It can go a long ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys are kind of overwhelmed on that concept, feel free to reach out, because even if it's something that we have zero knowledge about, whatever industry or passion that you're pursuing, I guarantee we can at least kind of, maybe give you a few pointers and point you in the right direction of ways to maybe identify some of these mentors. Because when I say mentor, I'm not talking about, finding Mark Cuban's phone number or email address. And, you have to be realistic. You have to identify people that are in a place on their journey where they're
Yeah.
far enough ahead, where they have the time, or more importantly, they have the passion to give back, because that's a big part of entrepreneurship. Once you get to a certain level, it's about helping people helping people after you,
Yeah.
realize their goals, and really just expanding the amount of people that are entrepreneurs. I think it's something like 4% of people in America are small business owners and entrepreneurs. So it's a very small community, and it's hard to find other like-minded people that can relate to some of the stuff that we're talking about. So we'd be happy to help
One
you
thing I've
guys
learned though
brainstorm on that.
is that when a lot of people that are successful, they do want to give back and they do like mentoring, sharing these conversations. And so when I was a little bit younger, I'd always put these, I would say to myself, well, that person doesn't want to talk to me. They're not going to share their story. I would have all these ideas before I even spoke to someone. And a lot of times they're just wrong. So if you have someone in your life that you've identified, ask them if you can take them out for a cup of coffee and, listen to their story. Will you share your story with me? A lot of times they will.
And when you're doing that, compliment them, feed their ego a little bit. It's a two-way street, just realize that they're doing you a service. So whatever you could possibly do to kind of return the favor, do that, even if it says something minimal as just offering to buy their cup of coffee, or to, send them a handwritten thank you note afterwards. Just any sort of gesture to show your authenticity and your genuine appreciation for them taking the time out of their day to do so. By doing that, you can call that person a second time. It's not going to be this, transactional type relationship where, because I've had that before with other people that have reached out to me, where I give them advice and then thank you, bye bye, and I never hear from them again. And it just, there's a right and a wrong way to handle this type of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
well, you guys, we'll leave it at that. We got 3 really good questions that I think we gave you guys a little bit of value from, hopefully. So If you have any follow-up questions to any of these 3 questions that we talked about today, again, feel free to comment in our show notes or shoot either of us a direct message or an email. We'd love to just kind of carry on this conversation one-on-one with you further. Always happy to kind of act as a mentor or even just a sounding board just to talk through maybe what's going on in your lives. So,
That's right.
but Ben, I'll let you close us out on this one. Guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Ben?
Thank you again. This has been such a pleasure. And until next week on the pursuit of progress.
We'll catch you guys then.